It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the Aerial Servant number 2. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today from 1980, this is the Aerial Servant number 2, the product of Simon Kirby and Matthew Hankins. Hope you enjoy today's video. As I mentioned, we're taking a look at the Aerial Servant number 2. This is the sort of larger magazine size. It is just regular paper, not even heavy stock. 3 color printing on the front, stapled down the side. 36 pages this time, which is a few more than they had the last time. We'll take a look at our cover. You see here, we've got this swamp creature, maybe it's a dragon, I'm not quite sure. On the front, it has advertised a D&D scenario and postal games, which is a big focus for the Aerial Servant, kind of unique to them compared to most other fanzines that we've looked at. Here's a closer picture of the art. I don't see any initials or attribution here. Inside this time, they do give credit for artwork to Dave Davies, Richard Knights, and Keir Watson, but I'm not sure which one of them actually is responsible for this cover. In terms of contents, we have the editorial, Spawn Pit, that's their new monsters, Travelin', which is an article about the game Traveler, sci-fi game Traveler, module reviews, which are a discussion of a couple of TSR modules, The Laughing Realm, which is the new D&D adventure, Dragon Lords, which is part 2 of their new character class, Spirits, which is an article with a new monster or set of monsters called Spirits, A Story, which is a fantasy fiction, part 2, continues from the last issue. The Electric Zygote is the section that deals with postal games and is pretty substantial. As you see there, just about 10-11 pages. And the back page has a questionnaire or like a survey for the readers. In terms of who participated, as you know, Simon Kirby and Matthew Hankins are responsible. And then they give credit, not clear exactly who did what, but Steve Cullis, Ashley Bedford, Edward Bowen, Dave Woolaway, and then Graham Askey, Matthew Hankins, Dave Davies, Keir Watson, Richard Knights. The editorial talks about the improvements they've made with more interior color, some artwork, as well as better articles. They give credit to the different people involved, encourage you to contribute, encourage you to send in artwork. You're allowed to, obviously write in if you want to pay for some advertising, if that's something you're excited to do with their new zine. And then they have a short list of their table of contents. The Spawn Pit is the new monsters. And the first one here I think is called the Xanax. It's by Graham Askey. It is basically like a flattened spider. More legs about 12 inches long, and a body's covered with all these little tiny hooks, and basically it comes up and it will jump on you, and if it successfully hits, those little hooks will have dug into you or your armor, and then it has these little pinchers, mandibles, and it'll bite you and inject a poison, which lasts for 2 to 8 rounds. Each round there's a 10% chance that the creature manages to absorb itself through the skin and into your body and then wrap itself around an organ. And then at that point it can use telepathy and take over control of your character's body. If you resist, it's able to inflict a lot of pain, and obviously at that point you can't get it out. You can try to rip it off based on strength. 17 strength give you a 10% chance, 18, 20% chance, and then for every percentage of exceptional strength you'd get a bonus. At 1880, it's 100%. And they also just say a magic user can attempt to control it mentally, I guess. It's the same as their magic user with a talisman of the sphere of controlling, a sphere of annihilation. If the magic user tries to control and fails, the Xanax will turn its attention and attack the magic user. All right, the second one is by Dave Woolaway, and it is, I think it's called the Voce or the Voce, maybe it's Italian. 2 to 20 appear. These are undead spirits that abhor the negative material plane, even though they draw their sustenance from it. So they try to spend all their time on the prime material plane. If they attack, they release sort of a charge of negative material plane energy. And after 5 successful hits, they have to sort of phase out, go back to the negative material plane and reabsorb that energy and then come back to the prime material plane. And they're very vulnerable during that period. If you kill them before they've released all 5 sort of charges that they've built up, they'll sort of go into an explosion and you'll actually kill them. Then Ashley Bedford has the Night Walker. It looks like an undead because it's a corpse, but it's actually some type of a sentient virus that has absorbed into and now is animating this corpse. They say they sort of look like skeleton zombie cross. Usually the skull is completely bone because the flesh is decayed and fallen away. They only activate during the nighttime, and then in the daytime it'll collapse and it says sort of like the body absorbs down into the ground. That seems a little odd to me that it doesn't even look much like a body, but in any event, that's what they look like. And of course, they can attempt to, if you get killed in a battle with them, the virus can attempt to spread it to your character's body as well. And even if you're not killed, if you're damaged by a physical attack from the creature, this virus creature, then maybe the virus gets into your character. You probably should get a saving throw to resist that happening. But if you are infected, then it can take over and basically kill you over time. So pretty nasty stuff. Travelin' is the article this time for Traveler. This one talks about giving you hit locations. And then the second thing that they have is called Knights of the Second Imperium. It sounds a lot to me like Star Wars inspiration, frankly. And they talk about this Second Imperial Age, and a time of chivalry and honor. And the Guardians were the mysterious Imperial Knights whose power lay in the Force. You can see where I thought it sounded like it might have been inspired by Star Wars. But in any event, I think like a lot of people who liked Star Wars back at the time, there was a thought of like, how do I bring that really cool Jedi idea into my game? Speaking of really cool, we have a review of 2 classic TSR D&D modules. The first is B2, the Keep on the Borderlands, and the second one is C1, the Hidden Shrine of Temochin. So they didn't really love the Keep on the Borderlands. They said a valuable asset to the beginner's collection, but dull to anyone with experience. I take issue with that. I think sometimes B2 doesn't get the credit it deserves for what it's trying to do, which be, sort of a base of operations to start a campaign, an introduction to both teach DMs and players how to play the game in a way that's set up to make it pretty easy to sort of know what to do and understand sort of how the story's evolving, but also is open enough to go a lot of places, right? You don't have to go to the Caves of Chaos. You can go to some other location around the map that the DM wants to create if that's how you want to run your campaign. On the other hand, they love the Hidden Shrine of Temochin. This, of course, is the second publication, right? The original was a tournament module by Harold Johnson and others. Jeff Leeson was the other person responsible. And then it's redone. It's a sort of monochrome module. And the first one that had a second booklet with some pictures to show you more precisely what the characters were seeing. They really, really like this one. In particular, they like it because they say that the adventure is not just a linear hack and slash. There's got to be some thinking and some puzzle solving. And if you're, not a smart player, this will expose you and probably kill your characters. So that they liked. It is a great adventure. Okay, so this is the new D&D adventure in the Aerial Servant. It is called The Laughing Realm by Graham Askey. So this one, I would say, is has a lot of really interesting ideas. For me, a little too much. All these ideas sort of crammed into one adventure, and a lot of the really good ideas not developed nearly enough. Here are the maps. On the left-hand side, you start at the top left. You're in this sort of gorge, I guess, and you come along. There's a lake, and you see in the middle there's this drawing of this peaked mountain that grows up, and there's a doorway in it that you've got to go into. When you pass through there, you go into the Laughing Realm. So then you come over to the long rectangular map. You start at the top and you work your way to the bottom. There's a puzzle to it. You've got to collect these 4. You got to understand the puzzle to realize what the 4 things are that you've got to collect along the way. You've got to collect these 4 items in order to get out of the Laughing Realm, and there's a time limit on when you're going to be able to get the sort of the portal opening it back to your world. And on the right-hand side, you see these other little maps that are illustrative for specific areas that you might meet along the way. As I said, my biggest complaint about it is that there were a lot of really good ideas, any one of which could have been fleshed out into maybe like a really interesting encounter, but it was like, oh, it was just like, each of those things was just like a really short encounter. And so I think they skipped over what could have been a lot of really interesting stuff. As a result, this was probably just one really long evening's gaming session, 5-6 hours maybe. I think the party gets through it. Not a huge amount of combat, unless the party gets stuck and you just let them sit there stuck. But it is, as you can see, pretty linear. You're going to march from north to south. There are things you can sort of stop and do along the way. There are things you can skip over. If you skip over too much, you're going to miss one of those 4 key elements, and you're not going to be able to get out of here. So then you're going to have to go back and do it. But other than that, like I said, lots of good ideas. I think a good DM could really flesh this out and make this a 2 or 3 session adventure with a lot more richness to it than maybe what Graham provides to you directly. A little note in here about the competition. They said this guy won the issue for spotting all their mistakes last time, but they said, now here the real competition is, tell us the name of the song in the group that performed this song. And they said there are clues you can pick up somewhere in this issue. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. I don't have any idea what they're talking about in here. But maybe somebody smarter than me can pause the video, or I'll say something that clues you into some type of song they might have been referencing. Okay, Keir Watson, last issue and this issue, is giving us a new class called the Dragon Lord. And last time they gave us everything except for all of their spells. If you remember my discussion, they have very unique spells that they can learn as a Dragon Lord. So here are the spells for levels 3 and 4. Again, I've talked about these in a little bit of depth because I really like the character class, and in particular, the specificity and the thoughtfulness that goes into what the spells are they can learn. So the Dragon Roar, you summon a roar equal to that of a dragon, which causes the fear effect of a dragon when you do that. Skin, or Scale Skin, which causes the thick scales to appear on the Dragon Lord's skin, lowers their armor class by 3. Polymorph 2 Lizard, so just a non-magical lizard. Dragon Breath, super powerful, I think, maybe too powerful to be a 3rd level spell. Cone of Cold, Fire, or Lightning, based on the dragon, and does the same damage as a dragon, 1d6 per level of the Dragon Lord. Sticks to snakes, like the clerical spell, but creating 2 snakes per stick. Lose Limb, it's a really clever spell. If the caster loses a limb, you lose no hit points, and then you can regenerate anything from a finger to an arm or a leg at the rate of 2 inches per day. Really cool spell. Not sure how you know in advance, unless it was a very specific circumstance that you want to learn and memorize and cast this spell, but in any event, I like it. And then Reptile Summoning 1, and there's a list of different types of reptiles, anything from a pseudo-dragon to a lizard man, giant snake, spitting snake, hydra wyvern, water naga, or something from level 2 spell, the Reptile Summoning 2 list. Random. 4th level spell, Dragon Wings. You grow wings in 1 round, then you can fly at a speed of 12, movement rate of 12, lasts 2 turns per level. Shatter Scale, which shatters the scales of any creature, in particular like a dragon around you, raising the armor class by 3. Mind Link allows the caster to link mind with any reptile. It doesn't really say necessarily that it would be a dragon, which is one of the interesting things about this, is they're called Dragon Lords, but they have an affinity for dragons, right? They don't really give them the power to sort of rule over dragons, which would make them super powerful. But they're lesser cousins, right? Sort of normal reptiles. They do say the reptile's got to be friendly inclined, so you might have to cast a charm reptile spell or some other, or have a very calm reptile that you found in order to do the mind link. And of course, you're also limited by the intelligence of the reptile, but it's kind of a cool thing. And what I think you would do is, once you mind the link with the reptile, then you could send the reptile out to sort of scout for you or do some simple task for you, and you would have the ability to gain all their perceptions. Phantasmal Force, the illusionist spell, and they say in particular any illusion of a reptile will then be treated as if it were an improved phantasmal force in terms of how well the illusion will work. Neutralize poison, and then reptile summoning 2, different list of lizards. And then finally the 5th level spells, the Dragon Roar, that's the Dragonne. Maybe I'm not saying that correctly, but this is the roar of the Dragonne, or dragon. The Reptilian form, this is the 9th level magic user spell, Shape Change, but you can only assume a form of a reptile with the same or lesser hit dice as your Dragon Lord level. The Wall of Claws is like a blade barrier, but instead of blades, it's the claws of a reptile. And then Reptile Summoning 3, same thing, except for you have a better list of reptiles you can add to your list. And then finally, Druid spells. You can use any one pre-chosen 2nd level Druid spell. So there you have it, in those 2 parts, the new character class, Dragon Lord. I think it's very interesting. I have no idea that it play tests well, whether it's overbalanced or underbalanced, but what I really like about it is how, again, I think it's very thoughtful. The abilities you're going to give the character really tie back to that idea. And also, as I said, you don't really gain control over dragons. It's more of an affinity for the dragon's lesser cousins, the reptile world. And it feels like it's probably not super overbalanced. I mean, that dragon breath, it's a spell, so you're not going to do that very many times, so it's not super powerful. And outside of that, I think most of these spells are not going to be horribly game imbalancing. That's my view of it. Okay, then we have an article on spirits, the free-willed elemental beings, but not from the 4 elemental planes, water, air, fire, earth. These are evil spirits released into the world when Pandora opened her box. There are evil and good spirits in the world under this theory, and so the evil spirits are aligned with sort of these primal things: pride, envy, sloth, avarice, hate, etc. And then there are good ones that counterbalance that, like humility, generosity, love, serenity, temperance. And in particular, each of those has one that's a counter. And so if you do encounter someone who's possessed by an evil spirit and you can bring the sort of opposite good spirit together, it will go into that body, force both spirits out. And so that's one way you can free a person who's been sort of possessed of an evil spirit. They have ideas around things like protection from evil, dispel magic, remove curse, exorcism, holy word, unholy word, globes of invulnerability, and a magic shell, mind blank, etc. Different ways that you can sort of interact and counterbalance these spirits. I think it's a thoughtful article. It's a creative idea. I don't think I would use it to a great degree in my campaign, but I do like this idea that you could be sort of affected by a particular, evil spirit like envy or sloth or hate, wrath, whatever. And then that's going to cause that person to behave in a certain way, right? Be jealous of other people, attack people, with anger or whatever. And that there might be like a puzzle for the characters to figure out what happened to the person who's been affected. Like I think you'd find an NPC in town, right, who's been affected by this evil spirit. And then the adventure would be to figure out what has happened and how you can counter that, whether that's going to be a way that you find the counterbalancing good spirit, or there's some sort of talisman or something you can bring back to defeat the spirit that's inside, because you wouldn't want to harm the NPC. Like that would be kind of how I would see that playing out in my personal campaign. The story continues here. This is the fantasy fiction by Matthew Hankins. I mean, I think it's a perfectly okay fantasy story. And then we have several pages again for the Electric Zygote, which is their play-by-mail section. And they give you all kinds of information about the different options that people that they know are running. They've got a Middle-earth campaign here, a campaign on something called The Massacre, which ties back to the Conan books, Boot Hill. There's one called Almeida. And then they have several sections on this one that's called Gennara, where they go through and explain in that particular play-by-mail game the different character classes. And I thought this was kind of interesting. These are the character classes you could choose. Again, play-by-mail game where you're going to send in your thoughts or instructions. They're going to send back the results. You could be a magician. Magicians do not accompany adventurers. They're solitary characters. So that seems pretty limiting right there. Conjurers, And these are people who deal in magic by either connecting to sort of demonic forces or spirits, like the spirit of a tree or a river or a rock, something like that, that they get in touch with. The magic users, I go back to so the magicians, they say, are totally evil in their outlook on life. All they want to do is gain power and knowledge. So you can see why that wouldn't be a very good part of a party, but I guess they still allow you a chance to play those. Again, the conjurers might be part of a party. They're probably going to be mistrusted by most people, but they do have some ability to help with their sort of connection to the spirit world. Clerics, always evil. That was kind of surprising to me, but respected for their loyalty. So I guess they sort of, like in D&D term, must play like lawful evil if they're going to be loyal and trustworthy, in spite of the fact that that they're likely to be advancing sort of, some less than honorable goals in the end. Then you could be a thief, also distrusted because they're thieves. They did have, I thought, an interesting idea that I like for sort of a homebrew concept, because everyone's complaint, right, about thieves is, if you start a character at first level, some of those thieving skills are just abysmal, right, your chance of doing stuff. So they give you sort of a blend of what you get in 2E. They give you 20% percentage points at first level that you can spread out among other thieving skills. And so you could raise your open locks percentage, or whichever ones you might want to pick, and give those bonuses to that. And then at second level, if I read this correctly, like you get 18% you can add on to, and then 16, etc., to other abilities. So that was kind of, I thought, an interesting idea, and maybe makes some sense as a way to help thieves become a little less useless at those early levels. Then you can be a warrior, which is sort of the generic adventuring class. And again, because remember, this is Conan-centric, and so then you can also be a barbarian, which is the most well-respected warrior character class that you could be. But again, they're not going to want to be around conjurers, and certainly not magicians, which I guess aren't around anybody anyway. And then they give a little bit of information about this game, Massacre, which is interesting. And so the premise of this one is you're in a brawl, and somebody didn't like the innkeeper, and so they put a potion into several people's drinks that cause people to become sort of irate, and want to kill. So they cause this big brawl. Everyone's been arrested. All their weapons and armor were taken away. They figured out to some extent that they're going to let people go, and so they opened the doors of the cells. They begin to hand people back their weapons. So everyone has their weapons back. They've handed everybody their armor, but no one has their armor on. And then somebody drops something, and some of that potion effect is still there. And so one of the other NPCs, prisoners, takes his sword and starts attacking the guards. And so sort of chaos breaks loose. Half the NPCs are still infected with this sort of bloodlust of trying to kill anything that moves. And your character's goal is to try and get out of the prison area. You have to fight by some guards, perhaps, however you might be able to do that. But that's going to be your goal, is to get out without being killed. So I thought that was an interesting idea for a little session. They give a list of who you can write to for the various things they're running. They mentioned they had this thing they called the competition dungeon, where each person was going to basically be going through the same dungeon, earning points like you would at a convention, where you're in a convention dungeon, and then after a period of time, whoever would score the most points would win, and they might get some free issues of this magazine, something like that. But apparently they didn't have great response to that one yet. There's another one called Almeida, and they just give a little bit of background here about it. This was and there's a map as well. This was basically a trading crossroads. It was really successful, but then very recently there's been some rise of chaos and breakdown of the security in the area, and that was accompanied by a plague that caused death of not only the people in the city, but all the nearby people that they traded with. And so there's sort of this rise of chaos, and that's the time period your characters are getting dropped into this play-by-mail game. And then finally they have one they call, I think it's Rega Tria. And again, he's looking for more players for his campaign as well. He says, here's my map of this place called Corbane. This is the island that your characters are going to start on. for the play-by-mail game. And so basically you would just roll up characters and he would start the session, but he hasn't done that yet. Finally, we have our questionnaire, which is the things he's asking you about, right? It's always a good one. Give us your breakdown. What percentage of the magazine would you like to see devoted to these different games, D&D, Boot Hill, Chivalry and Sorcery, Traveler, etc. Rate out of 10 how much you like different zines. Beholder, Demon's Blood, Dragon, The Dungeoneer, Stormlord, Troll Crusher, The Wanderer, and White Dwarf. So those will show up in a future, replies will show up in a future issue. And then how much did you like, and they list on a scale of 1 to 10 the stuff from issue 1, and how much did you like on a scale of 1 to 10 the stuff here in issue 2. Please give that to us. Okay. A little advertisement I wanted to share because this is a Fanzine Friday video, and they mentioned, I think, a fanzine that I hadn't heard of. I've been looking around. I can't find any information about this. I'm hoping someone, maybe someone from the UK, can drop some comments or give me a direction to where I can get information about this. So it calls The Sorcerer, and the thing that struck me is it's 28 pages. It's issue 17 from September, and so they mention in here something about Games Day from 1980. They mentioned something in here about one of the play-by-mail games that they hope they get that started by September or October. So I'm thinking this comes out in this this issue came out in the fall of 1980. Again, trying to piece that together. But in any event, I've never heard of The Sorcerer. It's 28 pages. Now, Simon says it ain't worth it, so maybe it's not very good, but they got to issue 17. So that's the thing that really makes me interested, because to have that many issues of a fanzine I've never heard of. But it's, I guess, so I also thought, well, maybe it's not RPG related, but it says discussion, rules, monsters, magic, city. Guy's name is Pete Bright, from around, must have started like in 1979, 1980 era. So anyway, if anybody out there's got any information about The Sorcerer, please let me know. And if I can ever come across any information about it, like I say, you're always learning more about this stuff. There's always more to learn. There's always new fanzines to discover and hunt down. So I've got a new one on my list. Here's some of the interior artwork. I get myself out of the way. Again, it's really hard to see who's getting attribution for this stuff. I think the Traveler one is probably, well, I can't tell. I can't tell what this is, but we've got a space sci-fi guy. We've got the woman fighter there with the rapier, and then we've got this sad-looking little king of the ocean sitting there with his trident and his crown. And that is it for the Aerial Servant number 2 from, I think, the fall of 1980. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you're enjoying the series, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who might enjoy our channel, please send them our way, and hopefully they'll be subscribers as well. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.